we'll just wait a couple more minutes just to see if anyone else is going to show up, then we'll go ahead and start. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for showing up today. Welcome to Social Justice Week 2021. So Social Justice Week was begun by SSU student Shelby Wade in 2015. The goal is to provide a space for not only the Sonoma State student body, but the community as well to contribute ideas, gain perspective, and get understanding of the current social issues. Its mission is to, one, connect students with advocates who help students develop theoretical understanding of whose land SSU sits upon and the power of grassroots activism for human betterment and social change, while raising student and community awareness and engagement with issues embedded in societal social structures of inequality, colonialism, imperialism, classism, ableism, sexism, patriarchy, heterosexism, queerphobia, transphobia, xenophobia, and religious and other discrimination. And two, to involve students in social justice issues and organizations which produces socially responsible students, educated to be effective personal and social change agents in the pursuit of justice, community engagement, collaborative partnerships that strengthen communities, provide services and prepare students, and contributes to equitable distribution of economic, political, civil, cultural, social, and other resources and opportunities in order to promote personal, campus, and community development. My name's Dennis Pessy. I'll be your host today. I'm a fourth year Sonoma State student majoring in political science and minoring in jazz studies. Our facilitator is Yasmin Flores.
Hi, everyone. As Dennis mentioned, my name is Yasmin Flores. I'm a Catholic fourth-year political science student at SSU who's had an interest in social justice for a long time now. And I wholeheartedly believe that Jesus is the answer to social justice issues that our world faces today. I think Jesus teaches us to love God and to love others, and that is what I think social justice comes down to. Love, and God is love. So I'm here today because I love Jesus and I love social justice. My role for this session will be related to running the technology, organizing your questions for the speaker, keeping time, and enforcing the ground rules. In short, I'll be in charge of all the behind the scenes stuff, including the chat. If you have any questions or concerns, we ask that you please send them to me in the chat instead of using your mic. Thank you for joining us today, and I will pass the mic back to Dennis so he can go over the ground rules.
Thank you, Yasmin. So just a couple of ground rules. So they'll also be posted on Caitlin Henry's screen. So number one, be curious to others and avoid inflammatory language. Speak from your own perspective. Critique ideas, not individuals. No derogatory or hateful language / actions. Avoid speaking over each other and respect other people's contributions. So today's session is an hour long and the formatting will be as follows. This will also be posted into the chat. The first 15 minutes, our presenters will be talking about the social justice work they are engaged in. The 15 minutes after that will be a social justice action that you guys could take slash like sign a petition, contact a decision maker, make educational materials, stuff like that. And how you could set aside 30 minutes to an hour a week to volunteer time to a specific cause that could make a difference. The next 15 minutes will be a discussion talking about what our speakers have gone over today and what action you guys could take to help this cause. Then the last 15 minutes, we'll come back and reflect on the conversations that we had today. With all that out of the way, I would like to introduce our speakers. First off is Emily Miller. Emily Miller is a senior graduating this spring with a degree in political science with a minor in history. My apologies. She's currently serving her second term as an Associated Students Vice President of External Affairs. In her time at Sonoma State, she has been a part of the Model United Nations team and served as Vice Chair of the Legislative Affairs Committee for the California Student Association. She has worked through 3 campaign cycles and was the youngest congressional campaign field representative in California at the age of 19. She currently works as a first undergraduate to intern full-time at Becker Castro Fairbanks Public Affairs firm in Sacramento. After college, she will continue to work in public affairs and pursue a master's in public policy. And our second speaker is Yemi Perez. Yemi is a 4th year at Sonoma State studying sociology and criminal justice. She is a senator for community affairs and intern at the Dream Center here at SSU. She has worked very closely with the undocumented community to fight for policy change with campaigns such as the Yes Immigrants Forward campaign. After graduation, she aspires to continue her work with her community in Richmond alongside organizations working on immigration and social justice. Amy also aspires to continue her academic career by receiving her master's in social work and one day starting her own nonprofit. So I would like to hand the mic over to Yami and Emily.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having us today, Dennis and Yasmin, and to be a part of this great Social Justice Week in tradition at Sonoma State. Yami, if you could please share your screen with our presentation. Perfect. So our session today is mainly focused on how students can get involved in lobbying and policy change. So what does social justice mean to myself and Yami? Social justice to me means having the right thing, doing the right thing by raising your voice to represent yourself and those around you. However, doing the right thing is so many different things for so many different people. For me, it was joining student government and upholding the voice and the student wishes on our own campus. Whether it's having the courage to stand up to a bully, pick up someone's trash, or hold the door for someone else, doing the right thing is built around the kindness and compassion of others that you share with your community, no matter what race, ethnicity, or background these folks may be from. Being a student leader has taught me a great deal about myself. The biggest thing being to constantly listen, even when you don't agree. In today's politically polarized society, it is often forgotten how key it is to instead listen instead of speaking louder. And just because you raise your voice does not always mean you're correct. The constant teamwork and community building we learn here at Sonoma State will create true social justice within not only our Sonoma State community, but the world community our Seawolves will have the opportunity to improve.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dennis and Yasmin, again for having us here today. We're happy to be here and just share a little bit about what we do with Associated Students and as student leaders. Social justice for me is coming together as a community and fighting for a better tomorrow. I think that our communities for so long have encountered so many injustices that have, stopped them, restrained them from being able to, prosper and, just simply be at peace. And I think that these issues have been going on for a very long time. And until this day, we are still fighting for certain rights that many have been fighting for centuries. And so social justice also means persistence and consistency, knowing that social justice happens every day and that it takes much resilience. And being a student leader has allowed me to find my voice, and it's given me the opportunity to work alongside students, faculty, staff, to have conversations and create change in order to have a community, a place where every student, no matter their race, ethnicity, or Black background, can feel included and prosper in their academic goals.
And then our involvement on campus, or our involvement in social justice throughout our lives. When I was 15, I began volunteering on a congressional campaign in my hometown, and that ended in my senior year. But the year after that, as the candidate's re-election came around, I was offered to become the head intern in that office, which eventually led to the opportunity over the summer to take a semester off as a sophomore from Sonoma State to become the field representative of that office. This has led me to be a great leader and a mentor to the students who were in my shoes a couple years ago, who were the interns, who I mentored strongly to become the best they could be and to become the leaders that they are in their own community. I worked with the National Congressional Committee and the state party, and I was in charge of over 90 volunteers who were just barely a year and a half younger than me. After I returned to college as a sophomore in my spring semester, I was eager to get involved in campus and was appointed to be the first Vice President of External Affairs for the following year. During the 2019/2020 school year, I took part in the Cal State Student Association as a delegate for Sonoma State and continued to uplift the voice of Sonoma County across the CSU. Enjoying the role so much of being the Vice President of External Affairs, taking the voice off campus, I ran for re-election the following spring and currently serve as your Vice President of External Affairs. Realizing that I had a passion for legislation and policy, I continued my work within the Cal State Student Association, becoming the Vice Chair of their Legislative Affairs Committee in order to assist the legislative affairs that take place across the CSU and across the state of California that impact our higher education experiences here in the CSU. And that I will continue my work as I graduate. So that's how I got involved, and I'm going to continue being involved long after I graduate.
Awesome. For me, I began advocacy work or just being involved with my community my junior year of high school. I was in a legal fellowship with UC Berkeley that worked with high school students and kind of put them in different nonprofits to get exposure. And so I worked with the Family Justice Center in Richmond, California, where I was really exposed to just the different issues that my community faced, some that I wasn't really aware of. And that really opened up my eyes to, wanting to create change for my community, or just being aware of those issues. And that's where I feel like the start of my love for sociology and becoming a social major, just knowing how our societies work, began. And so when I came to Sonoma State, I also began working with the Dream Center, which is a resource center for undocumented students, as an intern. I've been there working alongside the undocumented community and students. And then I wanted to continue working alongside students or just creating change at Sonoma State. So I got involved with Associated Students as Senator for Community Affairs. And this year I actually began working as well alongside Shirla, which is a nonprofit working with the undocumented community for policy change and providing resources for them. And I've been working for their Yes Immigrants Forward campaign, which aims to bring documentation for the full 11 million undocumented individuals in the US. So for me, it's just seeing that there are so many things to do, so many different issues that you can, just knowing that can change, and knowing that every little thing that you do or anything yeah, any work that you want to put forward, it does create a change and it does matter. So that's always pushed me to, continue to um, put myself in different environments that or different programs or projects that can create change. And so the next thing is favorite thing we've done, and I'll pass it back to Emily.
Perfect. Well, favorite thing I've done is definitely just continue to put myself out there. And I think that is a reflection of the work and involvement that has been the start of who I became as a young individual and what I am becoming as a young woman and a young leader. I believe that my favorite thing has definitely been serving as the first and last Vice President of External Affairs we will have at Sonoma State's campus, and being the Legislative Affairs Chairwoman, and learning how the higher education policy is what students want it to be. A lot of the work that I've done through the Cal State Student Association and on our campus at Sonoma State has begun with conversation. AB 1460 was a bill signed last year by Governor Newsom, was the ethnic studies requirement for CSU students. As some of you may know, Sonoma State already has the ethnic studies requirement to expand our knowledge about other cultures we may not be introduced to and further our awareness of ourselves. This was a strong conversation across the CSU, as only 4 universities had this as a requirement for graduation. We continue to have these conversations for over a year and lobbied our legislatures, called our local legislatures, and continued to have these conversations, which I played a key role because I was lucky enough to have a campus that did have this requirement and share my perspective of how that has improved me as a leader and a student. With all of these conversations, AB 1460 was signed into law, and our newest classes will be having this requirement and across the CSU, which I think is just as important to continue the advocacy and education, because it does matter, and what students want matters in our community. Teaching students about their own voice has been truly amazing and rewarding for me as I found my own voice here on campus. Seeing my colleagues like Yami grow into her roles, we've been working alongside each other for the past 2 years. But also in this picture, you see us lobbying in the Capitol for conversations such as legislative things like AB 1460, but also forwarding the importance of our legislature understanding the basic needs of an education system and how students may need their tuition paid for or have different ways of paying for it, but that doesn't stop the struggle of attending colleges. There's so many things that students face, such as food insecurity, housing insecurity, and so much more. So we're able to have these conversations with the legislatures to be able to improve higher education from a legislative standpoint, which I think is really powerful. Also in summer 2020, actually, I was able to help elevate one of my peers' voice, a student who had been feeling very strongly about the Black Lives Matter movement. I was able to uplift her voice to pair with campus in order to help her organize the Black Lives Matter movement march in Rohnert Park over the summer, which I was very proud of her. And I think that that was all her own work, but I was glad to provide the resources to her to be able to make that happen. But being able to connect students to find their voices has definitely been the most powerful thing for me in this role. And being able to spread social justice and the knowledge of how to act like I am today has been my favorite part.
Yeah, I think definitely going off of what Emily said, I think that my favorite part has just simply being finding my voice and finding my passion for students' rights, for having so that all students can access education, and also my passion for the undocumented community. That so many times, they are left out of a lot of conversations, and I think when we went to go lobby at apologies. When we went to go lobby at the Capitol, I think I always took the opportunity to share my story as an undocumented student and share the stories of so many others who I've worked alongside the Dream Center, and just sharing their stories and having that voice and taking it to the Capitol. Also just growing as a leader and working, as I mentioned before, working alongside faculty and staff. Through AS, you sit in a lot of committees where different faculty and staff are talking about certain issues that are affecting students and their ability to, to get their degrees and to prosper. And so just sitting in those committees and being able to put in your voice and put out ideas, because faculty and staff, they have one perspective, but you as a student, you're living through it, you're the issues that are affecting you, so you're able to put in that your word and truly create change. So that's been one of my favorite things. I think also just being part of the Dream Center has been one of my biggest accomplishments, or just favorite things to have done throughout my years at Sonoma State. I've coordinated the Undocu Ally training and the peer-to-peer ally training, so that students and faculty and staff who aren't undocumented can know of the issues that are affecting the undocumented community and therefore be better allies. And so that's been a great thing that I've been able to work alongside my team. And then also just being able to capture my community. I also love to do photography, and I think photography could be a great way to advocate and sharing your work. So through Richmond, I've also gone through my city of Richmond. We've also had a lot of rallies and just marches that we've been able to come together, and being able to capture my community just coming together and having that being able to capture that and sharing that with my community has been amazing. So I think there's a lot of different ways that we can advocate and just also just create change or through all of that. So we'll go into the last slide, which is success of lobbying. And again, I'll pass it on to Emily.
Perfect. Well, one of the things that is also a shared experience between Yami and myself is creating Sonoma State's Lobby Corps. Lobby Corps is a group that is across a thing that's on each campus across the CSU, where it's a group of students who take the voices and wishes of students off campus and take them to the legislatures, like the picture you just saw, and the moments that I've been sharing with you. Within Lobby Corps, we are able to be aware of state legislature movement, federal legislature movement, and also stuff going on in city council, like in Runner Park and Cotati. Lobby Corps is a group that has always been a hit or miss for our campus because we are a smaller campus, and also just being able to be here and be in this space. I think that sometimes students might think that they aren't important enough when the voice of the students is the most important piece of this. So I think that number one, being a successful lobbyist is understanding who you are and being able to share your story. And one of those pieces comes from being educated and understanding how you can help yourself and others. Being able to share this knowledge is another thing that I'm so proud of in the experiences I've shared with all of you. And I think that it's one thing to read a book about civil resistance or be able to hear a speech or watch a movie and really understand it. But when you turn around and explain it to someone else, I think that's when you truly understand how emotional it can be and how much, the folks in those videos and movies and books could have made a difference, and how you can too. And understanding that your feelings are valid, but also staying respectful when you have these conversations. I think it's one thing to, be very angry and think that you're right or someone else is wrong. But I think that all of our values and our perspectives are what's the most important part at the table when we do have these conversations. Organizing is another great way to really advocate and lobby. And this can be done by so many different ways, by having a Facebook page and sharing ideas. It can be writing letters of concern to your local legislatures, such as Assembly, Senate, or Congress, or even your city council members for something that is happening right in town. Organizing a march about something that you're really proud of or really upset about as well. And also calling your local legislatures. I think that folks are really scared of this part. At the end of the day, we're all just people, and their job is to listen to us. And I think that sometimes we forget that because we see them in these large roles. But a big part of our democracy is there for us, they're here for us. And if the more we act like it, the more we're able to make individual change. And just always keep going and never realize, or always realize what you're there for and why it was important to you in the first place. I think sometimes you may feel that you're shouting out into the void, but when you're moving towards policy change, it's always going to be a continuous conversation. We always joke about it in my office, how you continue to beat the drum until someone hears you. And I think that that's an excellent way to discuss it. You keep talking about it until you can't talk about it anymore, or until it's written down by someone who matters. And realizing that these things, again, are local, they're statewide, they're federal. So keeping the conversation going and getting involved in your local community like Yami, or volunteering on a campaign that you're really proud of like I have, and seeing where that leads you. I think that you can find your voice by so many different ways, and some of us are more comfortable with standing up and talking about it, and some of us are happy writing letters or happy organizing in the background. But everyone's choices are just as important as the other ones, because we're all a team in our community who want to make change and make a difference.
I think Emily summarized that very well on what a success of lobbying looks like. I think the only things I would add on would be, and they're kind of just, yeah, so the only things I would just kind of reiterate would be just being connected to, some of the organizations that you've always been interested in, to not be afraid to just simply reach out to them. They're always open to, taking on new members. So if there's a cause, there's an issue that you're interested in, certain organizations or nonprofits that are doing the work, go to their page, look for someone who's working, who's a representative, and just shoot them an email. I know that's what I did with Shirla. I know that they've been working on undocumented issues, and I was interested. I shot them an email and I got a response, and I was able to work alongside them. So don't be afraid to just be your own advocate and just reach out to people. I would also say, reclaim your community. Know that, get to know your community and get to know the issues that are happening within your local community. That way you are able to start there and then go much bigger. But it's always important to start within your own environment. And then lastly, I would just say, try to educate yourself the best you can. So embrace diversity. At SSU, I would say there are so many events happening left and right, different communities. And so if there's something that you're not so knowledgeable about, don't be afraid to pop out to an event. These events could be made by, the Hub or the Dream Center or different organizations. And so just be on the lookout for that, and don't be afraid to just go in even if you don't know anything, but be able, don't be afraid to explore other cultures or other issues, and so that you are able to just educate yourself, and that way you're able to also teach others and just continue learning. So I think that's just something that I had to add. But again, I think Emily did a great job of wrapping that up, or summarizing what success of lobbying looks like.
Thank you. And I believe that it really doesn't stop there. I think that there's so many things, and recognizing your voice is powerful on its own, but realizing how much louder it can be in a community that supports you. Here at Sonoma State, Jamie and I successfully organized a registration drive that registered over 300 students to vote, which was, we'd made it in the top half of our CSU and how many student percentage we had registered, which is huge for Sonoma State. So we're really proud of that. And that's another way you can get involved, is making sure your friends around you are just as involved as you. I think that it can be discouraging when you're the only one that wants to have these conversations, but continuing them and holding them to a high degree and realizing how important you are and how important the people around you are is going to be key into improving your entire community. And that'll create a movement, hopefully, that makes something way bigger than you are better.
And thank you all. I'll go ahead and pass it back to Denise so he can continue on what's next.
Thank you for that. That was awesome. I believe we have a question. Yasmin, if you want to ask it.
Sure. This was a question from Dean Carlton, and I sent it to Emily. Why are you going to be the last Vice President of External Affairs?
Yes, so in my role, I have spent 2 years in this role building it and then also kind of learning what this role should look like. And I believe that in the student government, it's more important to focus on the legislative piece and taking the voice of Sonoma State off campus in this position. So AS is going through a restructure, and one of those things that I found key to improving my own role is to change it. So it's going to be an appointed position next year with a different name. So I will be the first and last, and I like to take that. I'm taking that one with me when I graduate, but I do believe that this role is going to continue to be improved to be something that really fits what Sonoma State needs and what our students need to be successful and be heard.
Okay, on to our next question. 1 second. So this is a question from Kalia. Her message reads, I'm so inspired by both of you. Thank you. My first question is, how did you gather enough power or weight to get that important bill passed? How did you organize? How did you organize throughout the CSU statewide community to bring this vital bill to the state government and get it through? And did you partner with the state legislator to get it passed? Who wrote the bill? Thank you for your time to answer. And then she also added, so I am hearing that you helped to get that key bill passed through strategic, successful lobbying. Yes?
Absolutely, yeah. It was a bill signed by Shirley Weber, and I believe she is going to be our next Secretary of State. And she was a strong advocate for students, and she's a strong advocate for young adults throughout California as well. So one of the things that we had organized to do, or something that is key to my position, is that I take the Sonoma State Voice off campus, and I'm a delegate at the Cal State Student Association, which is essentially every CSU has a seat at the table, and we talk about what's important to our own campus. And on the legislative affairs team that I vice chair, this was one of the bills that was introduced by students. We found it really important, and we decided to take a stance on this bill as an approval, and we wanted to pass and lobby this bill the best we could. Sonoma State also took a stance on it as the legislative chair for that as well. And so Yami and our legislative team helped write a stance from Sonoma State saying this was important to us because it's something that is already required on our own campus. And so there's an annual conference called the Cal State Higher Education Summit, and that's when we organize in Sacramento, and when things are in person, we all get to meet and knock on doors of legislatures and talk about what's important to the CSU. And that can be the California budget and how that impacts us. It can be legislation, or just, how important it is to be a student in the CSU and how we're the next generation, the next voice of California. And so last year, AB 1460 was in the conversation, and we got a lot of interesting things. It's kind of interesting because the Cal State doesn't always regulate curriculum. And so that was a big conversation, but what was heard was students really, really wanted this to be able to be a well-rounded citizen of California and the world by learning about these different cultures and learning about themselves as well. I know that's a perspective that I always shared was, I didn't know a lot of things that my professor shared, and I really value those. And I think those perspectives are important to learn. So that's how we did it. Lots of conversation.
Thank you. We also have a question from Troy. What can we do better at SSU to get us all more active in making a difference?
I think for me, or what I've been able to see is just see the areas that that you see are missing at Sonoma State. Like, what would you like? And I know that's one of the reasons I got into Associated Students, because I felt that if I wanted to make a change, like this was the right thing to do, or it was the best way for me to get into that, um, to get in there and talk to people. For me, one thing that I've also been fighting for, been wanting to see, is more student representation. Um, and I'm also, I love art, and I'd love to be able to combine both of these things. So I've been working like on a mural project where, so that there's more exterior art out there that students can be able to see themselves and know, I'm not only seen, I'm heard, and I think art goes a long way. If a student is having, a bad day and they're walking through campus, but they see an art that is directed towards them, or that is reminding them of their power, of their, their abilities, then it can go a long way. And so just knowing that, I wanted to push this forward. So I've been having these conversations on how we can make the process for exterior art easier, and because I think that's just a big way to bring forward more community and just more liveliness into our campus. And so I just say, if there's something that that you see is missing, bring it forward to somebody, if it's a faculty, if it's a staff. I began with like the campus and space committee, and we sparked this conversation, and everybody has an opinion about it, and everybody, if they can do something, they'll be willing to do it, and they'll be willing to help you to create something or to do something. And so now we see ourselves having a mural committee that focuses fully on murals. And so it's things like this where it's just like, if you see something, if you want something, just start the conversation. Go to someone and just and then someone will listen, and someone will bring forward that idea. But I think that yeah, just don't be afraid to speak up and bring forward whatever you think is missing at Sonoma State, because there is a lot of work to do. And the great part is that we're here as a community, and we're stronger together. So we'll be able to accomplish those things, so that we have a community that's made for every student.
Thank you for that. We also have another question from Tanya, and I think Emily's going to start to answer before Yemeni. How do you think your identity has influenced the work you have done or are involved in?
I think that is a big part of who I've become, or who I was when I started in this role. I think that I was the girl that was the weird campaign girl that took a semester off. And then I came back and came into student government and really kind of found myself and realized there were so many areas to work on. I think that anyone who worked with me last year can tell you I was not the best listener, and I have really grown into becoming a representative of folks who don't always resonate with what I believe in. But I think being a leader is such a privilege, and it's such a responsibility that it's so much bigger than myself. And I think that that's so important as you move forward. And as anyone is a leader in any role or any group, it's really being a representative of the people that surround you, more than it is than them doing what you want. Leaders aren't the people that are in the back kicking their feet up. They're the leaders that are standing there next to you, teaching you, showing you how to do new things. And I think that I've learned that a lot more this year as I've solidified this role, and I can't wait to pass it on and teach someone else how important it is to listen and really understand as we continue to push for legislation, or we continue to learn students' grievances, because I think that every student has their own experience that needs to be heard, and they have their own needs that need to be met. But those students are going to be forgotten if you don't speak up for them. And so that's more important than you speaking up for yourself sometimes.
We also have 2 comments. One is from Carlton. It reads, "You are both so inspirational and true role models for all of us. Thank you for the work you do and your dedication to social justice. You are both examples of what makes Sonoma State special." Kalia also commented, "Thank you so much. I'm learning a lot." Okay, so I think that is all the questions that we have in the chat. We can open it up now to questions you may have. So feel free to unmute yourselves and ask the questions.
You guys should be able to unmute yourselves now. Is anyone having difficulties with that?
Oh, not now. All right, I'll ask another question. One of the things that it is always so interesting to me is that Associated Students does such important work for campus to raise awareness of student concerns and really do important social justice work and all those types of things. But the other thing that strikes me is there's always is how few students actually participate in student government, and how do we what are some things that we can do to get students more active in student government? And it's not just at Sonoma State. I see it everywhere. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that, because you guys are amazing. You guys have put the time in and have made a real difference. And I'm sure a lot of other students would really also would love to make a difference, but for some reason they're not getting involved with student government. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
I think if we had the answer to that, we'd be millionaires and we'd be selling it to every single AS entity and campuses. I think that, there's so much that feeds into that: enrollment versus how many students on campus versus what they're involved in. If they're involved in Greek life or something, they feel like they're too busy, which is a big giant thing in Sonoma State. Is majority of our campus is involved in Greek life or other clubs that take up their time that are important to them. I also think that, there's a specific connotation to, student leadership. It's always like the preppy kid in the corner that is always talking, or there's a specific things that push students away from student government. And I think they forget how important it is or how much different it is than their high school experience. And that can be a game changer with recruitment. But also just making sure that students really understand how much of a privilege this really is. And sometimes that can be scary. In the speech I was giving earlier, it was kind of like, people don't want to call legislatures because they're really important people and they don't want to bother them. But I think that can be a reflection of student government too. Students don't want to be in that really important, responsible role because it's scary. So overcoming that and really finding yourself before you fill these roles is super important. And it is a big responsibility. And I think that some students are turned away from it because of that. But I think that it's hard to encourage them. And I think that you can't tell them what to expect unless they're already in the role. So it's a little tricky.
Makes sense. Thank you.
We'll have questions up until 3:23. So.
I have a question. You mentioned lobbying for AB 1460, right? Thank you. What has been the most exciting part of being a part of Lobby Corps or lobbying? And do you have any advice for students that do want to get involved in lobbying?
Do it. Just do it. It's so much fun. I think that I've really grown in this role, being someone who was a campaign person who had the experience of working alongside a congressman from the age of 15, 16 to all the way to 19, and having a personal relationship with someone in Congress is really, really unique. And it goes along with legislatures sound really scary, but they're people too. And I think I learned that person was a person, and that really helped me be able to lobby with other legislatures who are in the state instead of federal. We've lobbied so many different bills. Last year, the Legislative Affairs Board for Sonoma State passed 5, I think, Yami, was it 5 resolutions and bill packages that we took a stand on that would help our students. My advice to you would just be to learn about it. If you're interested, I feel like people think legislation can be boring, but if it's for you, it's definitely for you. I think that everyone might have a little bit of a problem with how much I love it, but I love to share that love with others as well. And so if you want to learn more about it, I could help you, or I'm always available. And I think that AS has some positions opening up that can reflect how you could learn to get that done as well. Amy, do you have any advice?
I greatly agree with you to just like go for it. I think that we're all afraid and believe that, these people hold such a, high position and we're only college students. And so, but I think that they also seek your input. Like they want to hear from you, they're working for you. So what you say does matter. And so as long as you have something to say, I mean, even if it is just to go and learn, like it's a great opportunity. I know around like it was about a year ago, it was my first time at lobby courts, going to the Capitol, just being in that environment. It's very empowering to see yourself there, and then also all the other students from all other campuses across the state, all CSUs, coming together and fighting for the same things that you are. It's just a great opportunity that I'm just so glad, and I feel very privileged that I was able to be there, but to not doubt yourself, and know that, again, like I said, what you have to say really matters.
I would also add that you learn so much as you go and you learn along the way. There's so many different trainings for leadership, and we get to that point of being in the Capitol to where we're having all these events and learning so much stuff and learning how to have these conversations. But always at the forefront of those conversations is what your experience has been and how this bill gets passed, it will impact you in this way or negatively impact you in this way. And that's always the most important part, is how it impacts students and what your experience has been without it or with it. And learning along the way is definitely a big part. If we were all amazing legislative people, we'd all be in the Capitol or we'd all be fighting to be president. We wouldn't be college students. So I think that it's so important to continue to learn and be okay with not knowing it, and own that you don't know it, because someone will help you.
I would just add on and say we are the experts, although sometimes we feel like we're not, or that we don't really know what the issue is, but you do. Like you're an expert, you are the one living it as a student. So just wanted to put out there, because I know that many of the times when we go into lobbying, we don't know what to say or anything. But as I mentioned before, like what you have to say, like they want to hear it, and you are the expert of it because it is your experience. So to not be afraid, and to put yourself out there.
Okay, we're also gonna give Yemi a chance to answer one of Tanya's earlier questions, because I don't think she did. How do you think your identity has influenced the work you have done or are involved in?
I think that my identity has played one of the biggest roles of why I do what I do. I know that when I wanted to start AS, or be part of student government, like going into college, I never thought I'd be in student government. That's definitely not what I thought I would be doing. But I know that one student who was holding the community affairs position before I did, she told me, these are positions that your mother never had the chance to get. And I really took that to heart, and I just remember thinking, like, you're right, my mom didn't have this opportunity, but here I am and I do. And so I'm going to take it. And then I went for it. And I know that I come from a community that many times their voices aren't heard, or and so I'm there, like I mentioned, I'm the expert of like knowing what issues are affecting me. So I wanted to go ahead and be that voice for my community. I'm an undocumented student, first generation, and so I know that we just need more voices out there, and so it played a big role in me, wanting to continue to push myself and challenge myself and take up spaces that many times we're told we were not able to take. So so I just wanted to go ahead and do that for myself, but also my community.
We
We have
also,
time.
oh,
Sorry.
you can go ahead, Dennis.
I was going to say that we have time for one more question.
Okay, I think, let me read off something from Kalia. So she has two more notes for our speakers. One, I am so moved by both of your gentle, grounded self-confidence in this work. I too am part of a marginalized population and sometimes find the surety of the worth of my voice very hard to come by. Can you comment? And then she has another comment in gratitude for Yemi. Thank you so much for bringing your work utilizing art for social justice transformation. This is my experience too, and often not named enough.
If you could repeat the question one more time, please. Like the first question.
Yeah. So as part of a note, I am so moved by both of your gentle, grounded self-confidence in this work. I too am part of a marginalized population and sometimes find the surety of the worth of my voice very hard to come by. Can you comment? Kalia, I don't know if you want to unmute and clarify your question if you'd like.
Sure, and thank you for the opportunity, Yasmin, to do that. Just thank you so much, young women. I am so inspired and instructed by you, and it feels so good to be able to say that with my voice. So I'm so moved by like, I think as women, we're so often taught that like, well, at least of my generation, I'm much older than you. Like it could be vain or wrong somehow to be confident. And you both are so confident. I feel your esteem and respect for yourselves as you're teaching us. And it's very healing for me to witness that. And I find it hard to come by, and like the worth of my voice, right? And so I wondered if you could share with us, how did you evolve this? Did you start out this way in this life work you've taken up? Or did you find it in the work? That's, I hope that I'm saying that in a way that, yeah. Thank you for the time.
I could start if you want, Amy. I think for me, I actually come from a very conservative town in Modesto, California, and I was raised very conservative. And I think that coming to a liberal arts school was very eye-opening. And I think on top of all the work I've done, my eyes continued to be opened. And one of the biggest things was there was this one issue in student government that I just did not agree with, and everyone around the table was so excited about it, and I was so nervous to say anything at all. And the next week, I like cried to my advisors and said, "Why didn't I say anything, or why didn't I bring that experience?" And they said, "Your job is to remind everyone that in the whole room we represent all of Sonoma State. So if one person out of 15 doesn't like it, how many more don't? Or how many more feel uncomfortable by this?" And after that day, I think it was like the first month of student government, I promised myself that I have to speak up for the people that aren't in the room, even if I'm very, very nervous to say it. And that reminded me, you speaking kind of reminded me of one of the Disney quotes that I really love. It's by Princess Jasmine, and she says, "Courage isn't agreeing with people, but it's challenging the people we seek approval from most." And I think that you have to be courageous enough to say something, even though the people that you love might not want to hear it, or your peers might not want to hear it. And I think that saying that is a representation of your community and your values at the table. And I think that that's what's most important. And I think that I still struggle with it, and my voice shakes a lot when I don't disagree and others do. And it's something that people really, really have to work on. And what's horrible about that is the first step in practicing that is standing up to someone. So most definitely.
For me, I would say, coming into student government, I faced a lot of, imposter syndrome where I felt like I didn't belong in the room. I was just faking it. I didn't know, yeah, that I simply just didn't belong in the room. And I don't know what I got myself into, but, here I am. But as I went on, I think, like I mentioned before, with the quote that the previous student had told me about how my mom, didn't have the opportunity to do this, but I did. And so that always stuck with me, knowing that we are in certain positions and that weren't made for us. These institutions themselves were not made for people who, look like me. So to be able to sit in these seats where I'm putting out my voice and I'm making decisions on certain issues that will impact students, was something that I knew I couldn't take for granted. And so just knowing that I'm in this position and I have to do the best that I can in order to, continue making an impact for our students who many times don't get a seat in the chair, seat at the table. And so that has always encouraged me to continue to challenge myself and continue to push myself to be in places where I thought I wouldn't be. And I just know that we continue to see that in so many different places, from, student government to like the Capitol. But as I go on with, where I decide to go after college, I want to continue to take that mindset of, they don't want to see me here, but I'm gonna do it anyways. And I want to continue to push those around me to do the same. So yeah, that's what's allowed me to continue to grow and be able to work alongside others.
Thank you. So Gammy and Emily, do you guys have any final remarks?
My sales pitch is that there are positions and associated students that you apply to that you can be appointed to. So if you think that this could be a role that you want to fill, or you don't know where to get started, you can always apply and go from there.
Definitely. I want to say first off, thank you to all of y'all for being here and just allowing us to have this space to share what we've been able to do. And know that student government is out there. It's a great opportunity. I think I owe it to student government to kind of to allow me to be the person that I am today and to create to grow my want for advocacy. So like Emily said, if you are interested, there are positions. Recently we've had like student representatives. So if you don't want to because the positions for student government have closed off. We had our elections this year already, but if you want to be a student representative and still have a voice in what is going on campus, those are available. And I will go ahead and try to get that information right now. Hopefully I can get it in the link before we go, or if there's any way, maybe I can send it out. If we have everyone's information, we can send it out in an email. Okay, great.
Can I hate to end the meeting this way. I mean, it's a positive note, but I'm wondering if I can jump in here and also make a pitch for a way that you can get involved if you're a student in the School of Social Sciences, that I'm forming the Dean's Advisory Council for for students. And I've reached out to several students. And if any of you are social science students and would like to be on this advisory council that's made up just of students in social sciences, please email me directly, and I'll make sure that my assistant reaches out and gets you invited to our first meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's two great ways to get involved, and they're endless. They truly are endless. And once you find your voice, I think that's the most powerful thing. You think of like little puppies when they bark for the first time. Like, see who they are as they grow. And as humans and advocates, we kind of have the same thing. When we learn how powerful we are as individuals, that's what truly matters. So thank you for giving us this space. I know that Yami and I were like, really, us? We're going to talk at Social Justice Week? So I think that it was really empowering for us to be chosen, just as much it was for you all to hear our stories. So thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking today. That was an awesome presentation. So just a few things before we break today. So we are funded through the school's instructionality related activities program. So in order to get funding, we need to provide information to the school. Thus, we have a survey and we need to have the survey to continue to get funding from the program. And without you guys' input, we would risk losing funding. Plus, the information will help next year's social justice week class and making this event even better. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a link to that in the chat. Then also on Friday, we have our awards and closing ceremony at 7 p.m. That could be found on the same website in the chat. And thank you for everyone who made this meeting possible. And thank you everyone for showing up today.